Now there's a saying, repetition is the mother of all learning. Now the problem with this is that learning is wasted unless it's applied. Learning is nothing without execution, because that is how we convert learning into progress. So repetition is really about progress. It's much more than learning. So with that, I present to you a new axiom. Repetition is the mother of all progress.
Mic check 1 2, mic check 1 2.
Now think about this for a second. Everything in our cosmos is repeating. The way that the planets are rotating around the sun, the way that species are evolving and constantly mutating, and ultimately the way that we're expanding in this Hoberman universe. Repeating is natural. Repetition is biology, it's physics, it's chemistry, it's mathematics, and it's life. Think about this for a second. We're on a spinning speck in the midst of an infinite number of specks that are all repeating in terms of how they are born, how they live, and ultimately how they die. We are on a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a speck amidst this repeating cycle. That's repetition. Think about this for a second. Repetition is the pulse of the universe. We can think about our heartbeat. We can also think about the infinite number of loops and cycles that we have that carry on our cosmos. That's repetition. When I was 18 years old, I got a tattoo of an Om symbol right here, right on my heart. And if you haven't heard of this, the Om symbol is a common mantra in the Hindu religion. But really, it's so much more than that. What is Om? It's the sound of the universe. It's the sound that we can generate when we put our hands together and make the most natural sound. Om. But the philosophy of Om is much larger than a sound that you and I can create. It's the sound of the universe. Now think about that for a second. It's almost like music. There is a hum to existence. It's ever changing, but it's always out there. There are varying levels of frequencies and volumes, but sure enough, there's a hum. That is Om. Now I know what you might be thinking. This sounds like bumper sticker philosophy, some sort of an existential mantra that we'll read on a t-shirt at a yoga store. It's something more than that. It's something bigger. You've probably heard that music is the universal language, is because we seek a couple of things. Number one is we seek repetition. Number two is we seek something that's familiar. Number three is that we yearn to find joy. And number four is we seek frequencies that we can align ourselves to because it makes us human. It's natural. The reason why pop music is the most in-demand music is because there's a tremendous amount of repetition. There's a loop. There's something that we can connect to, something that's familiar, a frequency that feels good to us. Something that brings us joy. So I will ask you a simple question. What are the things that you're repeating in your life? What is the sound of the hum that you are creating? What are the frequencies and how are you affecting others? Are you bringing more joy than struggle? I am certain that repetition is the cure for all of our problems, but it has to be positive repetition. Now, there are many things in our lives and those are simply called bad habits. Repetition in its most productive form has to be with the purpose of learning and ultimately affecting change for good. Now, it could be conscious or it could be subconscious, but the key is to repeat. Now, I'll repeat that. The key is to repeat. Now, when it comes to being productive, one of the most important things that you can do is to set goals and to actually write those goals down. And the reason why that's so valuable is because if we set a target, if we set a goal, we can manifest and ultimately channel our energy to accomplish that goal. If you read any book on self-transformation from the greats like Dale Carnegie, Napoleon Hill, or Zig Ziglar, they all talk about this idea of setting big goals, writing them, and repeating imperfect action to accomplish those things. Repetition is the foundation for success. One of my favorite quotes on repetition is from Milan Kundera. Happiness is the longing for repetition. Now, there's a famous tale in Greek mythology where Zeus, when punished a young Sisyphus for disobeying him. Now, Zeus's punishment for him was that he had to roll a rock up a set of stairs, up a hill for eternity. That's right, he had to push a heavy ball up a hill for the rest of his life and eternity beyond. I don't know about you, but that sounds like the worst form of punishment ever possible. In fact, think about how repeating so many things of our life are terribly boring. They're monotonous, they're rote, they're predictable, and generally unexciting. Taking out the trash, brushing our teeth, sometimes cooking meals, driving to the office. These things are not fun, but they're essential to our progress and our personal hygiene. After all, who wants to smell like a trash can at the office? So the paradox here is that repetition is the key to learning and progress, but it also can be boring. And that paradox paradox is so essential as to why we must find joy in our repetition. There's a famous quote by Pina Bausch, a famous German dancer and choreographer, and she said, "Repetition is not repetition. The same action makes you feel something completely different by the end." So think about it like this. If you practice a guitar riff over and over and over again, chances are it's going to sound better. But more importantly, it's going to feel better. You're going to get to the gist and the essence, and it's going to allow you to express yourself without thinking about expressing yourself, just feeling it. So check this out. You might see my funk face at the end. That's when you know I'm not really trying and I'm feeling it. Now, I am not a great guitarist by any stretch of imagination, but when I repeat things, I get better at them. And with the repetition, I can get a riff that sounds good and feels good. Now, I spent a lot of my time traveling the world: Europe, Asia, North and Central America, the Caribbean, Australia, and more. And what I was constantly looking for was something new, something different, a new form of excitement. But what I realized is what I was really looking for was something familiar, a vibration, an experience. And it made me realize that I didn't need to spend my life traveling to try to find something, that I could find it already in my life if I were just present. Now, don't get me wrong here. I love traveling as much as the next guy, but the key here is finding joy in repetition to accomplish a purpose. And that ultimately is what can bring us the most amount of happiness. It's joy in repetition. Muhammad Ali once said, "It's the repetition of affirmations that leads to belief. And once that belief becomes a deep conviction, things begin to happen." So think about that for a second. Affirmations is the first step to accomplishing your goals. That's how he became the undisputed greatest of all time boxer. So what this means is repeating your affirmations, repeating your actions, finding joy in those things to ultimately accomplish your big, hairy, audacious goals. Sounds fun, right? Yes, it's repetition. Some of the best advice that I ever got was on the tennis court. Someone once told me, listen, when you miss a shot, don't curse at yourself. Don't hit your racket on the ground and pout. Take a practice shot. Do what you plan on doing the next time and give yourself a positive affirmation. This way you're not being hard on yourself. You're affirming that you can repeat the correct action so the next time you get that hit, you're prepared. Repetition leads to preparedness, and being prepared is essential to accomplishing your goals. Think about if you keep telling yourselves that you can't serve at tennis, or you don't know how to cook, or you're not a good salesperson. If you continue to say those things, your mind, your body, and your spirit will believe those things. And if they start believing those things will ultimately become true. Kobe Bryant said it best. He says, "I wasn't born with the talent of basketball. I made a choice to prioritize it and to use the skills and talents that I already have." Kobe Bryant reminded us that it's important to be the first person at the gym and the last person to leave the court, and finding a way to still maintain responsibilities. Repetition has to be a product of prioritization. So I will ask you this. When was the last time you said that you're not good at something, but didn't prioritize practicing it or repeating it? That doesn't mean that you're not good at it. It just means that you didn't repeat it. You figure out what you think that you're not good at, and actually tell yourself that you need to prioritize it and that you can be good at it if you repeat it, and that you can be good at it with repetition. I am a good baker, and I don't forget to take things out of the oven. Now, be intentional, prioritize, and practice, because there's progress on the other side. So remember, the next time you want to accomplish something, make a plan of repetition and find the joy in that repetition, because beyond it is learning, progress, and joy. Oh yeah, and one more thing. Don't give up. See you at the next one. Thanks.